Welcome to our first ever podcast, that being the Shear Sports Cuts podcast. I'm your host, Adam Shear. Today on the cutting board, we're going to talk about the NBA playoffs a little bit. We'll talk about LeBron James's possible destinations. We'll swing into the NBA lottery that just occurred last night. And then I'll finish it off by talking about the NHL playoffs a little bit. So we're going to first begin here by talking about the NBA playoffs. Sorry, guys, I know this seems a little bit NBA heavy today, but it's really where everything's going on right now. When you look at the playoffs, though, as I previously stated, Amare Stoudemire stated yesterday that he thought that Lamar Odom played a lucky first game. Sorry, Amare, when you pull down 3 rebounds and Lamar Odom pulls down 16, that's not called being lucky. That's called actually fighting for the ball. Amare, you are 6'9", 245 pounds. You need to be fighting for the rock more often when it comes off the glass, man. You are a physical specimen, to say the least, in this league, and you have the strength and power, we've seen it on your scoring end, to get to the rack and also rebound. You just aren't converting that. You're taking poor positions on your blockouts and you need to help your team by grabbing more boards. Louis Amundsen should not be Phoenix's leading rebounder. He's not nearly as strong as Amare. So when I look at this series, though, I really want to point out something, and that's that I think that the Lakers pretty much have this thing locked up after that first game. Not only did they have a demoralizing blowout victory from the Suns' perspective, but there's this thing that Kobe Bryant does when he knows he's got you killed. And it's almost like a reverse type vampire look. For those who are listening to the YouTube podcast, I'm going to put a picture of this so you can see, but it's almost like he jettisons his bottom jaw forward and shows his canine teeth, and it's just this total evil look that basically shows Bryant's need to be the villain, and it's his relentless, the Black Mamba image that he goes for, that once he's got you, he knows he's got the game and mostly the series won. I'm not saying that Phoenix doesn't have the talent to come back in this series. I just think that LA will sweep them at this point after seeing how much the Lakers won that first game by. But I'm going to roll through some of the talent Phoenix has here. I really like their starting 5 that begins with Steve Nash, who has really established himself as one of the better point guards in the NBA over the past, 5-6 seasons here. Then you move to shooting guard. You've got Jason Richardson, who I've always thought is an underrated shooting guard. He's got a lot of tools. He can hit threes. He's an athlete. He rebounds fairly well. He's not necessarily the best passer, but he is a really solid shooting guard. Then you get to Amare, who I'm not a huge fan of on the defensive end. He really just doesn't try as hard as he could. He's a guy that really lacks rebounding skills. He needs to be a better rebounder. Like I said, that 3 boards in the first game just doesn't cut it if you're trying to get to that championship level. Then you got Grant Hill, who's been here for years. He's still a crafty veteran. He knows how to score for his age. And then you move to Robin Lopez, who's a good defensive big man in the middle. He's not a guy who's going to get you a lot of points or anything, but he is a good defensive center, so he can kind of, combat the Lakers' Andrew Bynum. Their bench is solid as well. You have Channing Frye and Jared Dudley as your 3-point options off the bench. You move to Leandro Barbosa and Goran Dragic, who are both guys who are quick guards that can create offense for you. And then you have, as I stated, Louis Amundsen, who's really a hustle player. He can grab you rebounds, but again, you go back and Amare should be their leading rebounder. The guy is a manimal. He's 6'9" and 245. He just looks like he could a grizzly bear out there, yet he just doesn't try hard enough, and that's what it's going to come down to, is how hard Amare Stoudemire really tries. It'll be interesting to see if his mind is already checked out of Phoenix and is looking already towards free agency, as he has the option to leave Phoenix this year with his player deal. So we'll look for that in tonight's game. Amare, you got to play better if you have any chance of winning this game, and I really just don't see it happening regardless anyway. So I really think that the Lakers will get this one, and then the Suns will be so defeated by that point that when they get home, they'll lose 2 straight as well. The other series going on right now is the Orlando Magic versus Boston Celtics series, and the Celtics won the second game of that series, making their lead 2-0 against Orlando. And here's the big thing here is that Orlando was playing at home, so now they've got to go back to Boston, which isn't the easiest arena to play in the NBA by any means, and you're already down 2 games and you're on the road. It's just not seeming like Orlando is going to win this series or even has a chance at this point. I don't think necessarily that they will get swept. I could see them winning a game or two, maybe one in Boston and then one back when they get home. But the fact of the matter is that Boston is just playing great defense on them right now. Dwight Howard really hasn't faced quite the post defense in his first 2 series. Yeah, you could argue that Tyson Chandler and Theo Ratliff are good post defenders, but Boris Diaw really wasn't going to hold down Howard in that first series. And then when you move to the second series against the Hawks, you had Al Horford and Josh Smith playing defense on him, and those guys are more power forward defensive players. They really can't handle such a big man and Howard. So when you get to this Celtics series and you have to face a Kendrick Perkins and a Kevin Garnett, who are both great defensive bigs, it's a lot harder for Howard to get things going. His hook just looks like he's too far out from the basket at times, and he's kind of forcing it. When he gets fouled and gets to the line, he's just not converting. That's not his game. It's almost like the hack-a-shack thing that you saw in the in the early 2000s. And then the Magic aren't spreading the ball as well, and that's a lot of credit goes to the Celtics for, creating great defensive spacing, getting out on the offensive players, and making sure that they don't hit open threes. When you can rely on Kendrick Perkins and Kevin Garnett to defend the post, you really take away Vince Carter, Rashard Lewis, J.J. Redick, Mikal Pietrus, etc., all these guys on the Magic that can hit threes, and that makes it a lot easier for you. That's why you haven't seen Orlando explode to the near offensive capacity that they're used to. So really, Boston's defense has just looked incredible, and I'm surprised at that to an extent. I would have thought at this point, after winning that Cleveland series, they would have been a tad worn down because they are an older team, but they're just not. They're riding their momentum from that Cleveland series, in fact. So when you get to that, you really have created something that the Magic just aren't used to. They hadn't played a defensive team like that. Add into that Rajon Rondo has really established himself as one of the better point guards in the league. You saw his move against Goran Sutan last night where he pulled the ball back completely over his shoulder for the most part and then brought it back for a layup. It was one of the greatest looking plays I think I've ever seen a point guard do. It's something that you'd almost see at a street pickup game, but it just was so pretty. And Rajon Rondo is just putting up layups and getting to the rack at a high rate that, Jameer Nelson isn't quick enough to keep up with him. They tried J.J. Redick on him for some reason last night, and, Redick's not quick enough as Rondo is himself. So, really, you're lacking anything there from a standpoint to stop the Boston Celtics' most consistent contributor at this point. Really, the other part of this series that you're looking at is Kevin Garnett is playing great defense on Rashard Lewis as well. Lewis was the big factor in the Magic getting to the playoffs last year, and with Kevin Garnett blanketing him from hitting threes or stretching the floor or anything, it's pretty much looking like Boston has established their defense in this series, and that's just not something Orlando is going to be able to work against, because I just don't think at this point, with how well Boston's been playing, that Orlando can come back and win this series. Well, a guy that doesn't have to worry about winning an NBA playoff series anytime soon is LeBron James. However, he is still winning the front page of nearly every NBA news feed. LeBron is arguably, the biggest free agent